So thank you for joining us for Hybrid and Electric Vehicles 101. I'm Jamie, the Adult Services Manager here at the Town and Country Library, and I'm very excited to welcome Robert Boyle, Professor in the Automotive Service Technician Department at the College of DuPage, where he is here to explain the essentials, charging costs, and what to expect when owning a hybrid or electric vehicle. So I thought about hybrid too, so I'm going to be paying attention as well. Please also join us on Monday, April 20th at 7 p.m. We will be doing our next garden club meeting. So that's been a great program. We're going to be talking about how to grow a successful veggie garden with Bill Waters. He's been with us before. So he's quite popular. We're bringing him back. So again, please feel free to put your questions in the chat. If you're joining us from home, we'll get to those at the end of the program. And we'll get started. Thanks.
Thank you for the intro. Thank you for coming out today or joining us from home. My name is Robert Boyle. I taught at College of Page for 10 years as an automotive professor. Prior to that, and then continued, I've been a master automotive technician for repairing and servicing vehicles. And I've got a lot of experience with green energy and green vehicles working for DuPage County Forest Preserve prior to that. So a lot of alternative fuels, whether it's propane or natural gas, hybrid or electric vehicles, we were kind of guinea pigs or pioneers in a lot of those from a government perspective. If at any point I'm talking too fast, or I seem to fumble, or you just have a question that you think is vaguely related, by all means, please ask. Okay. I am an open book when it comes to the information about automotive. I want it to be transparent and honest. So just by all means, ask. Okay. There's a lot to cover here, so I'm going to try and be as comprehensive as possible. But you may be thinking of a particular situation. If that's the case, by all means, let's talk it through and bring it up. But I'll hopefully bring down everything from charging to costs of ownership, whether that's repair, maintenance, what's the difference between the different style vehicles, how do you choose, and kind of what's out there. So I'd like to think that I'm somewhat prepared because I personally own an EV and have for some time. I own a 2017 Chevrolet Bolt with a B. And so that vehicle has 130,000 miles on it. And then my wife has a hybrid, and I've had some hybrids before that. So feel like I'm good enough to talk on the topic. There's four main categories that I've got up here, and you may have heard some of the terms. So starting at the top is a hybrid. A hybrid is a vehicle that has a traditional gas engine, but it also pairs that gas engine with an electric motor, and they can use them simultaneously, or it can shut the gas engine off and it can just operate on the electric motor to save on fuel. You don't have to plug the car in. You just drive it, fill it up with gas. When the gas engine runs, it automatically recharges its own battery. And when that high voltage battery that makes it a hybrid is fully charged, it can shut the gas engine off and run an electric only mode. So it's very, very efficient.
It's all automatic.
It's all automatic. It's nothing you have to control. There's no buttons on the dash. It's very seamless. We've had hybrid vehicles for over 26 years now on US roads. Second one would be kind of an expansion on hybrid vehicles. I'll plug in a hybrid vehicle. Some of you had mentioned that you were in the market for a vehicle. Yes, you ordered a vehicle. You mind sharing what vehicle that?
Toyota RAV4 hybrid.
And on the RAV4, correct me if I'm wrong, they have an option of you can buy a regular RAV4 or you can buy a RAV4 plug-in hybrid.
We did not order the plug-in.
Yeah. And the plugins, at least on Toyota's side, they have a severe shortage issue, and they steer most of those towards the California market. But what makes a plug-in hybrid different is essentially it has a larger high voltage battery, so it can run on electric only mode for a longer period of time. And it has its own charger that you can plug into your home, an outlet in the garage, and you can recharge that battery pack without having to run the gas engine.
Is it a regular outlet in the garage or like for the electric vehicles, it has to be special?
So a plug-in hybrid, the beauty of it is, although it's got a larger battery pack than say a regular hybrid, it's not so large like a battery vehicle that you need a larger high amperage charger that like a Tesla or a Rivian would need. So you can use a standard outlet that you have in your
It will
garage.
drain your electricity.
It's not going to make a huge impact on your electricity. Um,
Yeah, so the hybrid there's either two different batteries in the car?
yeah, so all these vehicles have a high voltage battery that's going to run the electric motors, push the car down the road. And then they still have a traditional small 12-volt battery that we're all used to in all of our vehicles. That's what controls all the high voltage stuff, is that 12-volt battery. So we need some way to safely shut off the high voltage and safely turn it on, and we use the 12-volt battery for that.
Is it special 12 volt or just a regular? High energy.
More manufacturers are making them special 12-volt batteries, and what makes them special is some of them are lithium ion because they want them to last for more than 10 years, or they're a very, very small battery because realistically, that 12-volt battery, all it's doing is switching the high voltage battery on or off. But traditionally, there's nothing that special outside of the size.
It's gonna be like a high power 12 volt.
Nope, if anything, it's smaller. But very good question. Plug-in hybrids, you can use a traditional outlet in your garage, and we'll get into the costs deeper. But perspective-wise, if you were to plug in, let's say like a Chrysler Pacifica hybrid, those are 8-passenger minivan. You can plug them in and run it on electric only mode. It'll travel between like 30 and 40 miles just on electricity, never running the gas engine. If you were to recharge that minivan every night when you get home, you might see a difference of between $4 to $7 a week in your electricity bill.
So do you have to plug it in and recharge it and won't charge up while you're driving?
Very good question. So you have the option of plugging it in so that you're forcing it to kind of run on electric only mode and giving you that independence. But if you never plug it in, it functions exactly the same as a hybrid electric vehicle. Anytime that high voltage battery gets depleted, the gas engine kicks on, recharges its own high voltage battery, and you don't have to do anything different as a driver. So it gives you the option to be able to only run electric mode if you want, or gas and electric, or just run it on gas. So there's a lot of flexibility there. We're seeing more plug-in hybrid vehicles enter the market because they have that flexibility and they don't have something that we'll talk about with EVs, which is range anxiety. So an EV or a BEV, battery electric vehicle, is a vehicle that does not have any fossil fuel burning engine. It only has an electric motor, and it has a significantly larger high voltage battery so that it can propel the car for, generally speaking, more than 200 miles per charge. The problem is you always have to find a charging station, so they're not ideal for, say, cross-country trips. But they're never going to use fossil fuel, so some people seem to like them for that reason. There's less moving parts to them as well, and we'll talk about more reasons why you might want an electric vehicle versus a hybrid. And then not nearly as common, there's a few vehicles that are coming to the market soon. And there's one that was already been previously out. BMW made an i3 and it had a gas engine, but the gas engine was not tied to the vehicle wheels. It was only there as a generator to recharge the battery. So it was very, very small gas engine, almost like a motorcycle engine in the car. And its only job was to charge the high voltage battery. So it made it very, very efficient. The idea being it's like a battery vehicle in that it had a long range on electric mode. But if you forgot to plug it in, the gas engine would automatically start. It would recharge that high voltage pack and extend your range. So it's similar to a plug-in hybrid, but has a longer range, but not so much when it comes to fuel capacity, and it can't push the car down the road with that gas engine. It's just there as a generator. Does that make sense? Okay. Not moving too fast, or sometimes it's hard for me
So
to.
what's EV or BEV? What's the difference?
One's electric vehicle and one's battery electric vehicle. They're the same.
Okay, see that one.
They're the same vehicle. Manufacturers like using different terms because they have to be, something different. Again, hybrids are not new. We've had first hybrid in North America was the Honda Insight, December of 1999. And following in January of 2000, Toyota had their Prius, and that's very, very popular in North America. So much so that they continue to make the Prius. The Insight they only made for a couple of years. Honda Civic Hybrid followed that, and I didn't want to make a huge list, but just give you an idea. The technology has been around. Many of these first generation hybrids are also still around because they're very, very reliable. And we'll get to why that is. EVs are a little bit newer to the market. I have a picture of the General Motors EV1, which if you've ever seen the movie Who Killed the Electric Car, it's kind of an interesting movie about GM closing that electric vehicle program in the early 2000s when gas prices started to spike. It was kind of poor timing in some regards. And it also goes into some political things that were going on at the time, but an interesting watch. Since then, there was a large gap. We had to wait till 2010 to get the Nissan Leaf. That was kind of the next major manufactured electric vehicle. 2011, Mitsubishi had an iMev, which is a Mitsubishi electric vehicle. And then Tesla entered the market around 2012. Tesla is largely credited with pushing a lot of the legacy manufacturers to get off of their butts and actually introduce new EVs to the market because it showed that there was demand. And you really have to give credit for that. Put it in perspective, 2010 Nissan, that Leaf cost-wise was in 2010 dollars about $44,000. So it was really expensive back then. I think 44,000 is still expensive today for a car. And you only got about 101 miles of range. Today, if you were to release an EV that only had 100 miles of range, you would have a sales flop right away. Customers are demanding sub 300 miles or more from even like subcompact compact EVs. Most people expect to get at least 300 miles out of a charge. Okay. This was rather recent, and I felt like it was worth sharing. University of Michigan did a study saying how they were trying to research what costs more money in terms of the purchase price and how much does it cost to maintain, how much does it cost to make repairs, and how much does it cost to fuel the vehicle between a traditional gas vehicle, a plug-in hybrid, a hybrid, an electric vehicle, and they basically saw that throughout every category, if you bought a used electric vehicle, there was a substantial cost savings across the life of the vehicle when it comes to total cost of ownership. As far as why that lower cost of ownership exists, and this goes for whether it's an EV, a hybrid, or a plug-in hybrid, maintenance is big. I want to dispel the myth. A lot of people sometimes hear that electric vehicles are maintenance free or hybrids require no maintenance, and that's not true. All vehicles require some level of maintenance. They may be less maintenance intensive, but they still require some sort of maintenance to maintain them. I don't know the average age of the vehicles you drive, but usually the average age of the vehicles right now is about 13 years old for the US roads. So that puts you around, see, it's 2026 and 2013. That's the average age of the vehicle on the road. Okay. The car's going to need maintenance to be able to get to at least 13 years old without major repairs. Repairs are something that breaks that we have to fix. Maintenance is we're doing some sort of service preemptively so that we don't have one of those failures that's going to leave us stranded. What makes them simpler? For one, the transmission. Power steering, air conditioning, alternator, starter, and brakes. I'll go over those 6 shortly. Hybrids, as a general rule, that gas engine, it's there to help the electric motors. So it always has kind of a buddy on board to help push the car down the road. As such, it doesn't have nearly as hard of a job because somebody's always helping that gas engine push the car down the road. Over the lifetime of the car, it's going to accumulate less wear and tear because it's not as hard. The 12-volt batteries we were just talking about briefly earlier, they last a lot longer because they're not used in as stressful environments. So the hybrid, the beauty of having a hybrid vehicle is it has this high voltage battery. What makes it high voltage? The 12-volt battery is only 12. A high voltage battery in a Prius is anywhere between 188 to 200 volts. So it's, more than 10 times the size. If it's 10 times the size of a traditional 12-volt battery, it's really easy to power high amperage loads off of this high voltage battery. That means there's less stress on this 12-volt battery and it will live a longer life. Think of the electrical loads you have at home, your furnace, your air conditioner, your refrigerator. If there was some way to alleviate that strain from the electrical grid in your house, that would help your house's electric, right? That's what the vehicle is doing with the hybrid system. It's very nice. Often they come with a longer warranty as well. So how much simpler are we talking? As far as the transmission, a modern transmission has somewhere between 400 and 800 parts to it. Just by sheer number of pieces and parts, there's more things that can go wrong, or there could be a manufacturing defect. And sometimes those defects fall outside of the warranty period. And you as the consumer would be left on the hook for that repair. Hybrid, plug-in hybrid, or electric vehicles, the transmissions are significantly simpler, sometimes only having as few as 10 parts. Now, two of the parts in that transmission are electric motors that are complex, but they are very, very robust. Um, the electric motors in a transmission that make the vehicle a hybrid, they have to be strong enough to push the vehicle down the road and also be able to start the gas engine and recharge that high voltage battery. We use three-phase electric motors, and to put it in a consumer perspective, a three-phase electric motor you would find in like a commercial wood mill or a plant where there's some sort of stamping, something where you need an electric motor to run continuously for years and years and years. Now we're taking that same technology, we're shrinking it down slightly because we don't need a giant one, putting it inside the transmission, and we're asking it, please push the car down the road occasionally with the assist of a gas engine. And we keep it cool with either coolant or transmission fluid. So again, that electric motor has a pretty easy life from the grand scheme of things. Power steering, all the vehicles I've kind of mentioned, there's no longer a power steering rack or pump, hydraulic lines, hoses. It's kind of simplified, removed all those components and said, since I've got a high voltage electrical system on the car, I can just put another small electric motor on the steering wheel to help assist you turning the car. If the motor is inside the cabin where you are, you're generally pretty comfortable. You've got the heat on in the winter, you've got the air conditioning on in the summer. That electric motor is pretty comfortable. Again, not very stressed. It's going to live a long life. And from a parts perspective, there's a lot less moving mechanical pieces that are going to go wrong, develop a leak, or have to be inspected and serviced. So I've kind of eliminated all those power steering issues that you may have experienced before.
Does the steering feel the same?
Yes. Some people sometimes would complain though, it's sometimes numb, meaning let's say you go over a really bumpy pothole road. Sometimes the car is really good at preventing the tires from moving back and forth in the potholes from transmitting up to the steering wheel and causing the steering wheel to shake. Some people would complain that it's too numb, but manufacturers do that so that you don't have to fight the wheel in those situations. Personally, I would rather not fight the wheel. But some people like to feel the road if they're like more of an enthusiast, but if anything, they're better.
It's not a performance thing, it's just a perception.
Correct. If anything, they're better in low speed and parking lot maneuvers because electric motors have all the torque and it doesn't matter if the gas engine is running or not. It's very easy to turn that wheel, which makes it kind of nice. Air conditioning, same idea. Now there's not an air conditioning compressor that's bolted to the engine. We're not going to run the engine just to turn over the air conditioning compressor and make cold air. We're going to spin that compressor with an electric motor. That allows us the flexibility of running the air conditioning at a higher speed and making it much more efficient from an energy consumption standpoint. So I've kind of eliminated really only one part, the belt. Has anyone ever had to replace the alternator in their vehicle or had their alternator replaced? It's almost inevitable, especially when you get to that 10-year-old mark. The alternator's job is to charge the 12-volt battery. Well, we still have a 12-volt battery, but because we have this high voltage system, it has a different part that serves the same purpose. They call it a DC to DC converter. So it's going to take that high voltage from the high voltage battery and use it to charge the smaller low voltage battery. What makes it last longer is one, it's not a mechanical device that's being driven by the engine. And two, it can vary steadily output the voltage to keep that 12-volt battery happy. Whereas on your traditional gas vehicle, if we're spinning the alternator with the belt, it's kind of at the whim of whatever the engine speed is. So the voltage constantly is fluctuating up and down, and it's harder for that battery to get a consistent charge under all states. Starter, hybrids, electric vehicles, plug-in hybrids, they don't have a starter motor. I know someone's replaced their starter in the vehicle before. That's again one of those things that kind of rears its head and needs replacement on the coldest day of the year, the hottest day of the year. That part doesn't exist anymore. Going back to the transmission, one of the 10 parts is an electric motor. That electric motor is actually what starts the gas engine. So it's doing multiple jobs. What that means is you never have to worry about, is the car cranking? Is it gonna crank and then not start? Is it not catching? It spins the engine over very quickly. It's very smooth and seamless and allows the engine to start and stop under virtually any condition. And oftentimes it's very difficult to feel when that gas engine is even running on a hybrid. So it makes it really nice from a driver perspective. You just have to pay attention to the dash tachometer to see the engine speed. Your engine speed is usually a tachometer. It's going to have 0, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. That's adjacent to your speedometer.
Yeah.
Yeah, your RPM is very. On hybrids, it goes to 0, and then it also goes below 0, indicating that the hybrid system is being only in EV mode. So if you see it's below 0, basically it's running on electric mode only.
So is any of this affected by outside temperature? So like if it's 20 below, can you have trouble starting it or not?
It can have the same problems as any 12-volt vehicle as far as the 12-volt battery being low. But the 12-volt battery in like a traditional gas engine, when we turn the key and we go to crank that engine, we are asking a battery that's maybe rated for 800 amps. It's cold, and we're asking it, can you give me 200, 250 amps right away? And chemically speaking, electricity does not like to move very much when it's cold out. It's just like me in the morning. If it's cold, I'm not moving very fast. Okay. In an electric vehicle, all that 12-volt battery is doing, it's closing the switch, and the high voltage is doing all the work. So there's not a big demand to try to crank the car over. So it's easier. I hope that answers your question.
So when it's real cold, it's more likely to start than a gas engine.
Yes. There's a lot less choreography going on in the background that has to happen. So the starter, one less thing that can go wrong, brakes. Again, I'm sure everyone's done brakes. Brakes, depending on the vehicle, and if your driving habits, it could be something you do every 30,000 miles. On a hybrid or a plug-in hybrid or an EV, most of them go past 100,000 miles without even thinking about it before needing maintenance. Put it in perspective, my personal car, that Chevrolet Bolt, the amount of brake life left at 130,000 miles, and it's 10 years old, it's around 70% life left.
And why is it, don't they have pads?
So they still have normal brake pads, squeezing the rotors. The biggest difference is all these vehicles have what's called regenerative braking. So anytime your foot is on the accelerator pedal, we've got electricity or a gas engine driving the wheels. You see the stoplight turns red in front of you, you take your foot off the accelerator, maybe you put your foot on the brake, maybe you let the vehicle coast. The wheels are now driving the electric motor inside the transmission. That electric motor is now a giant alternator for that hybrid battery. And it's using it to try and recover some of that energy, put it back in the battery that we just used. When it's doing that, it offers enough resistance to slow the car down without you having to touch the brakes.
So you don't need to brake as hard.
Correct. You do not need to brake as hard. And there are some electric vehicles where they have what's called one pedal mode. The regenerative braking is so strong, you basically don't have to ever use the brake pedal unless it's a panic situation because it always slows down the car
As soon as you take your foot off.
as soon as you take your foot off the gas, and it's fast and strong enough to where it will slow with traffic just as you would traditionally slow with your foot on the brake. And the whole time most of that is occurring, there's very minimal wear occurring in the brakes themselves, and you're recovering some of the energy, which makes them a little bit more efficient. But brakes are something that's pretty common from a maintenance perspective and pretty expensive. Uh, Most shops, at least like where I'm at in St. Charles, are probably between $800 to $1,200 per axle to do brakes on a vehicle. So $800 for front brakes, $800 for the rear brakes, that's $1,600. This is a potential savings over the cost of the vehicle that you may not have to experience. And this isn't just like my perspective. This is years of being a mechanic and seeing them. When I worked for DuPage County Forest Preserve, we had many hybrid vehicles for our law enforcement officers. And those officers are traditionally either sitting there waiting for a call or they have to be uh, speeding to a call to get to the emergency. And sometimes that involves being pretty heavy on the brakes. This would extend the brake life significantly when they were hybrids versus not hybrid vehicles. Fuel cost savings, just for that same example, it doubled the fuel economy, regardless of how much time was spent idling the vehicle. So, think of whatever your current fuel economy is in your vehicle and double that number. That's what a hybrid sometimes can do.
So it's kind of like the idea, like if you're going up a hill and you take your foot off the gas, it slows up automatically. But you're
Correct.
not using the brakes.
Yep. So regenerative braking, again, just a way to recover energy that was already used. Going back to the laws of physics, an energy or an object in motion wants to stay in motion. If we've already got all this inertia of the vehicle moving, it's going to want to continue to coast. Well, if you want to slow down, I can recover some of that energy, convert that mechanical motion of the wheels turning into electricity, put it back in the high voltage battery, and then I can use it again very shortly. You can never recover all the energy you've spent, but you can recover a portion of it, which makes them pretty efficient. Some vehicles will allow you to change how sensitive that recovery is because some people want a stronger feedback and some people want the car to coast. All these vehicles have modes that allow the vehicle to coast like a traditional gas vehicle so that you don't have that uneasy feeling of, well, I don't have to brake. You can let the vehicle coast and use the brakes in their traditional manner. I've got a video here from Honda explaining that perhaps better. just an example of one manufacturer's little video snippet of how that technology works. Again, typically there's ways that you can kind of modify the sensitivity, and that may vary by manufacturer. My car is very similar. There's a paddle on the back of the steering wheel I could pull if I wanted additional regenerative braking, or you could put the transmission in a different mode, or you could just drive it like a regular car. There's a lot of flexibility there because they don't want buyers to be like regretful with their decision or confused with there's too much going on, it's too much busyness. So other pieces that make this cost of ownership lower, because that's typically why I tell people to, if they're car shopping, here's why you want to at least look at and entertain the idea of getting a hybrid or an EV is saving money. So all those components we just went over, those components are going to last longer, they're heavier duty, and they're under a less stressful environment, so they're going to last longer. Repair wise, just in general, we really don't see major repairs on hybrids, plug-in hybrids or EVs. And that again kind of goes back to the parts themselves are borrowed from the commercial electric segment. So they're made for a much heavier application. They're put into a car where it's very, very low stress to that component. So naturally, they're just going to, last a lot longer. That'd be like, instead of you having to carry a big box of books up and down your stairs every day, if you had a former NFL linebacker to carry them for you, it'd be like, oh, well, it's nothing for that linebacker to carry the books up and down. They could do it all day. They'll never get worn out. Versus if I did, eventually I'm going to get sore or I could injure myself. Okay. Um, the warranty period themselves, most manufacturers offer a better warranty. And we're talking 8 years, 100,000 miles. Does not matter if it's a Toyota, a General Motors, a Subaru. If it's a plug-in hybrid, a regular hybrid, an electric vehicle, they have a better warranty on those vehicles than they do their gas vehicles. Gas vehicles traditionally have something to where maybe 5 years, 60,000 miles that the warranty of that engine. Korean manufacturers, they famously have the 10-year, 100,000 mile warranty. That really only covers the engine, and that's only the first owner. If you ever buy a Korean car like a Hyundai or a Kia, that warranty is not automatically transferred to the second or third owner. Versus any of these hybrids, plug-in hybrids, battery electric vehicles, does not matter if it's a Kia or a Toyota or a Chevrolet. The warranties are 8 year, 100,000, and they're transferred automatically. There's no paperwork that you have to fill out. There's no fee that you have to pay. It's automatically done in the background. You just bring your car to any service center. It doesn't even need to be the dealership you bought it from. You could buy a used Chevy electric vehicle at a Toyota dealership, and you could bring it to a Chevy dealership, and they would honor the warranty as a second owner, provided you're less than 8 years old and less than 100,000 miles. So it's much better warranty. That should be a big green flag to you as a consumer. If the manufacturer is willing to put that big of a foot behind it, saying, here's how confident I am in the product, you should be confident in buying the product.
So it's 8 year or 100,000, whichever comes first.
Yep.
So you would expect to see, if you're looking at one that's coming, like it's 7.5 years, it's like, okay, maybe you don't want to get that one because we buy used all the time.
Yeah. So if I were to buy a used hybrid or an EV, the cost savings you're going to get is when the car is 12 months old to maybe 3 years old. There's going to be something in the neighborhood of like 30 to 50% savings.
From new purchase
Yeah.
price.
So that first owner takes a big initial hit, and that's regardless of any
That's
vehicle,
kind of, oh, yeah,
right? Some cars you drive them off the lot and they lose 30% value right off the bat.
right.
EVs are a little bit worse because people have this idea of like, well, I wouldn't buy a used battery from you. Why would I buy a used electric car? So the market doesn't have a big confidence in electric vehicles. I bought my EV used because I didn't want to take that initial hit as a buyer. And two, I wasn't fully invested. Like, man, do I really want to spend $40,000 on an electric car only to maybe find out, like, oh, you got to charge it every day when it's cold out and you only get 50 miles of range. Neither of those things came to be true, even in the Chicago area, but that dictated the used price rather drastically. If I was shopping for a vehicle, I would tell you maybe you're used to buying a car that's 6, 7 years old, an EV or hybrid, you might be able to buy something newer just because of that residual value hit they take right off the bat. Does that make sense?
So look for something. I mean, we buy old, we still have, our cars are 20 years old.
So
I'm used, but
the other thing I will tell you is, so this is the warranty period that Toyota or Chevrolet is going to offer automatically at no cost to you. You could buy that car 8 years old and buy a warranty.
extend like a,
Yeah, an extended warranty. There's one thing I need to tell you about warranties. The warranty is really only worth what the paper it's written on is. It has to be from the manufacturer. It cannot be a third party warranty, in my experience. Uh, it has to be, oh, I bought this used Chevrolet and I got a warranty from Chevrolet. Maybe they only offer you 4 more years, so it's a 12-year-old vehicle. And the other warranty company says, well, I'll give you 6 years. Actually going to stand on it. Honestly, as a technician, what I have seen with third-party warranties, their job is to retain as much money as they can from when they got your payment for the warranty at the sale. So they're not trying to pay out if there's a repair. So they're going to try and deny, oh, that part particularly is not covered or you didn't do something. I hope it's okay if that's the way. I'm just trying to be brutally honest.
I like that.
Um, it really, and I used to work for, I didn't mention this, I used to work for Chrysler Corporation on the corporate side, so above the dealers, and I called on 240 dealers in the Chicago, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Michigan areas. So naturally, I had to kind of babysit dealers that would, they'd be selling Sam's warranty company for a Chrysler product. Something would break on the vehicle, the customer would return to the dealership. Oh, I got this warranty that you guys sold me. And the warranty company would say, no, we don't actually fix that. Or you didn't read the fine print, it's not covered. If they had just bought the warranty from Chrysler, it would have been a better warranty. But sometimes the dealerships would get a better kickback from Sam's warranty company. They'd make more money than from the corporate warranty.
So if you buy it from Chevy, you gotta really look and be sure it's a Chevy warranty.
Correct.
Okay.
Should not say any other company's name on it besides the manufacturer. And if they don't offer it, that may be true, but sometimes you have to call the pre-owned corporate line to figure out, here's the VIN number for this vehicle. Can I get a warranty for it? And they'll tell you right away, here's how much the warranty is. And sometimes you can cut out that middle person. So if you don't feel comfortable buying the warranty from that dealership, you could buy the car from them, no warranty. And then usually you have 30 days. You can call the manufacturer and say, listen, I bought one of your cars used. Here is the VIN number. here's the mileage, tell me how much a warranty is, and they'll tell you. That would be my recommendation. Hybrids. I have a number of customers that have Toyota Prius hybrids, for example, that have 240, 260,000 miles, and they still haven't had any of the hybrid components fail that are, oh, there's no transmission issues, there's no high voltage battery issues. They've had to put the regular 12-volt battery in like any other car. They've had to do some tires. They finally had to do some brakes. But beyond that, there was no additional costs. They've been very low cost in terms of maintenance and virtually no repairs.
Wasn't there a big problem with Priuses just shutting off while you were driving quite a long time ago? I think, was it Steve Wozniak or one of those kind of computer dudes was suing him? It was a while ago, but the vehicle you'd be driving it would just shut off.
It's possible that there was
You're not aware of that?
no.
It was quite a big deal. Remember that?
It may have been early 2000s then or mid. Yeah. Anytime you have a situation like that, let's say, regardless of the vehicle, if it stops propulsion or stops braking or steering, it's automatically a safety defect. The manufacturer has to perform what's called a recall, and a recall is no cost to the owner.
Yeah, but in the meantime,
Correct.
you're on the road, your car stops dead. It's kind of scary.
Oh yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
you haven't been seeing that kind of issue.
No. Um, so yeah. Along the same lines, fuel. I researched some numbers. The cost of fuel to a household is typically about 3 to 4% of your whole budget. That number has probably changed in the last 30 days as gas has increased dramatically. Have a slide here that shows you some different values based on some different vehicles, but you spend between $2,000 and $3,000 for fuel for a basic car. If we're going to do a little bit of math, this is straight from my electric utility provider. Transparency warranty. I live in St. Charles, so the city runs their own electric grid. I don't pay ComEd, I pay the city of St. Charles for my electric bill. Most municipalities, you pay ComEd unless you're in, let's say, Naperville or St. Charles. There may be others. If you look at this first line where it says previous reading 31,937 and current reading 32,331, that's the overall how much electricity I've used from the start of one period to the end. And the consumption is measuring, here's how much energy my whole house used over roughly a month. Now that 394 kilowatts or kilowatt hours is basically how much electrical energy did you use for how long? It's a way we rate electric vehicle batteries. How much energy density do they have to be able to push the car and for how long? So I used 394 kilowatts. I paid $65.35 for that amount of energy. I've got some simple math up there. If I took $65 and I divided it by how many electrical kilowatts I used, I pay about 17 cents per kilowatt of energy. I did some other Googling just to see what like ComEd customers are paying. ComEd probably somewhere between 11 and 16 cents, depending on the municipality where you're at. Regardless, there's a cost to that, okay? The reason I'm going through all this is to show you the fuel cost savings if you were to jump the ship and go to a pure electric vehicle. So I used my car as an example. has a nice round number, has a 60 kilowatt hour battery. So I have 60 kilowatts of capacity. That means I could fit 60 of these 394 kilowatts in the battery. Obviously, I either charge my battery multiple times at home, or I probably use the air conditioning, refrigerator, lights, etc. in my house. Okay. If we take that 60 kilowatts, we multiply it by how much I pay for the electricity, 17 cents. I just rounded it up. That means it costs me $10.20 for a tank of fuel or electricity. How long or what's the distance I can get on my car? My car is rated at 238 miles. So think of your commute and how many miles you take and travel in a week. Roughly somewhere between 200 and probably 300 miles is normal for the average consumer. So think of only having to pay $10 per week in fuel costs. That'd be like going to the gas station and me telling you, you only get 2.5 gallons of gas, but that's going to make you travel the entire distance you need this week. So there's a big cost savings because it's every week. The other nice thing I've always liked since making the switch, and you might like it too, your electricity cost really does not fluctuate with most providers. You can change your plans, and sometimes there's different plans that offer pricing that's variable based on time of day. So they'll have cheaper electricity later at night where there's less demand because they're trying to run the power plant at a consistent speed. So they're trying to encourage you to run your washer and air conditioner and dishwasher when you're sleeping so that the electrical demand overall is even, not when everyone's home at the same time. Even so, it's pretty significant cost. The second thing I really liked was if I charge my vehicle at home, I don't have to stop at the gas station. I know I have to be home at some point so that I can sleep. And even if I'm a night owl or a vampire, I'm going to sleep at least 4 or 5 hours a night. At some point in the day, I have to sleep. Right? So that'll give the car an opportunity to charge. At no point did I have to stop during the day necessarily. And it allowed me that flexibility and freedom to not use gasoline. Now, if it was a hybrid, you could do the same thing. You could still charge. The difference is the size of the battery in a hybrid or a plug-in hybrid. You know, a plug-in hybrid, you're going to be charging off of your outlet in the garage or the front of your house. But instead of 60 kilowatts, a plug-in hybrid battery is probably closer to about 20. So it's a third of the size. So instead of $10 per week, you're only $3. Now, it's only going to get you sometimes 20 to 50 miles of range. So you might have to do that more often, but it gives you that freedom to run on electricity only if you wanted. Any questions on that? No? Public charging is something that we have to cover because whether it's a plug-in hybrid or an EV, at some point you're probably going to use a charger that's available publicly, meaning outside of your house. Those are very variable, for lack of a better word. There's a huge cost difference from one public charger to another. They will even vary by time, and many of them even vary by the demand of how many people are using them most recently. Similar to how you may have heard like Uber or Lyft has surge pricing where if a lot of people are trying to get a ride from those transportation apps, the price of those rides goes up because there's not a lot of drivers. Public charging can do the same thing. The reason I'm bringing it up is it's an expense, and you need to be aware that it's not all sunshine and roses if you own an EV, unless you just charge at home. I've charged at home successfully for years and years and years. I try not to use a public charger and plan my routes pretty religiously. I know I don't go that far, so it works really well. But public chargers, again, there's a lot of variables to it. So I pulled up two from the area. The one on the left is a Blink charger. This is just an app that you can use on your phone. But the point is, I'm trying to show you, they charge you 50 cents just to hook up on the left side there. And then it's 59 cents per kilowatt hour. So compared to the 17 cents I was paying at home, it's more than triple the cost. And then if you're idle, meaning you're just sitting, taking up a spot, they charge you 25 cents per minute. Because they're trying to encourage you move out of the spot, let somebody else charge their car. This is not free parking like Monopoly. You need to keep going. The one on the right, BP Pulse, they have pricing that's based on the time of day. So from midnight to 6 a.m., it's only 25 cents per kilowatt. That's all not that different from my house. It moves to 35 cents per kilowatt in the morning until 2 p.m., 40 cents from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., and then back down to 25 cents after 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. So you have to kind of be aware if you're going to plug in a hybrid or you're going to charge your electric vehicle outside of the house, that fuel savings potential, it could go away. Some of the very, very fast chargers that you see by the interstate, like by 88 or I-80, they'll charge your car in as few as 20 to 30 minutes. They are considered the gas pumps of electric vehicle charging, meaning they charge very quickly. Still not as quick as filling up your tank of gas, but quicker than most chargers. Those can cost more than a gallon of gas equivalent. So EVs are not typically regarded as the vehicle to be doing road trips with over long distances. Although you could still not use fossil fuels, you're probably going to pay a premium for filling up that electric vehicle quickly with a public charger. There are chargers that are cheaper, but they're going to take longer to charge. And those would be ones you'd find off of the highway at, say, like a Meijer or any hotel that's a destination, downtown areas. They'll have a charger that's equivalent to what you have at home or slightly better, but not that gas pump interstate speed charger that costs a premium. So just something to kind of keep in mind. Here's kind of a comparison, and I realize now that I probably should have broken these down individually so you could see better. I picked 4 different vehicles to try to get a little bit of perspective. We have a Silverado pickup truck on the left, a Toyota Prius, a Toyota Corolla Cross, little SUV, and then a Chevrolet Bolt. And this is from a website the government runs called fueleconomy.org. It's an easy tool to show you like what your current car costs you in fuel consumption. How much is it to drive 25 miles? How much does it cost to fill the tank? And then overall, what am I really spending per year on gas? Um, gas fluctuates day to day. Electricity typically does not fluctuate. I'm not 100% certain, but from my understanding, the state isn't allowing the utility company to raise the rate more than once a year, and they have to vote on it to authorize that rate increase from ComEd. So it's very consistent. Annual fuel cost is kind of this line here. So going from left to right, if you had a pickup truck, right now around $4 some a gallon. It's about $4,200 in fuel to go 15,000 miles in a year. So,
Was it
or
fueleconomy.org?
yes, and this is called their they call it side by side comparison, and it's this page but without the cars, and it has little drop downs so you can choose what cars you have, and then you can personalize. I only buy regular gas and it's actually cheaper, and I have more highway driving, or I only go 8,000 miles a year, so that these numbers more accurately reflect what you do day to day. So that truck only gets 16 miles per gallon, which is pretty typical, and that's a newer truck. So not great in the grand scheme of things, but $4,200 just for a year, and that's just to move the vehicle. Okay. Something like a Prius is only $1,200 because it's pretty efficient. That's a hybrid. Don't have to plug it in. I just drive it like a regular car. If I had something like a Corolla Cross, this is just a regular car, not even a hybrid. It's $2,200 roughly. So it's almost double the cost of the Prius, and it's roughly the same size vehicle. And then you move to EV. EV is $650 for the whole year, and that's to travel 15,000 miles.
That's for electricity.
Yep. So the difference is obviously it's not free money. It's going to go on your electric bill instead of your credit card at the gas station, but it's significantly different. Even it's half the cost of a hybrid, and it's a fourth of the cost roughly of a small gas vehicle. And again, I picked late model things to kind of show you, like, this Corolla gets 30 miles per gallon. That's pretty typical of a small car. That Prius gets 57, almost double what a good small car does from a fuel efficiency standpoint.
Isn't the upfront cost of the vehicle though a lot more?
For a hybrid, if we're talking new hybrid or electric, usually there's an upfront cost that's more than,
Considerably,
yes.
so that saving kind of could go away.
Yeah, so you may not see a fuel savings until year 4 or 5 if you're just counting on saving money from the fuel aspect, because you've got to pay down that extra cost of checking the hybrid or buying the EV. That being said, the longer you keep it, the more you're going to actually see the returns of your investment. And that's when all those repairs and maintenance we talked about, you're not really going to have issues. It's something that, when people ask me for, if they're family and they're asking me, what should I buy? Um, I always recommend at least look at whatever vehicle you're looking at, see if they have a hybrid model, because the hybrids honestly just make it a simpler vehicle. My father-in-law, bless his heart, would criticize me, and he was very confused. Why would a mechanic own an electric vehicle? That makes no sense to me. And I had to tell him, Larry, I work on cars all day long. The last thing I want to do is fix my own car. So I bought an EV so that I can do the maintenance and I don't have to worry about anything else. And to him, that was a big endorsement. I convinced him for his business, runs a fastener company. So they have to put 2 pallets of metal, steel bolts and nuts in the back of a van, and they make deliveries all day. He converted when he had to replace his delivery van, he bought an electric van because you think about paying $100 to $150 per day in gas. There was a huge savings opportunity there from a business perspective to go from gas to pure electric. And it made sense in his kind of delivery circle. The van didn't travel that far, but it traveled often. And, but yeah, not to get too off topic. You're absolutely right. There's a higher upfront cost though. So it's something to consider, especially if you are thinking about new. As far as how to make a decision, you kind of have to figure out right away. There's a big fork in the road. Where do you see yourself? Do you want to even have to have this decision of like, do I have to plug the vehicle in? Do I not have to plug the vehicle in? When do I do that? If you don't want to mess with anything and have to make decisions, and you want a transition that is as seamless from your current vehicle to a new vehicle as possible, buy a hybrid. Hybrid is going to be as closely related to your current vehicle as possible if we're just talking gas, because you don't have to charge anything. You don't have to connect anything. It's just using a more efficient gas engine that's often smaller, and it's pairing it with those electric motors that help the gas engine, and then just simplifying the whole package by reducing the complexity of how many parts are there. So hybrids are really, really helpful from that perspective. And then obviously there's the fuel savings we talked about. Plug-in, if you're at all on the fence and maybe feeling a little adventurous, a plug-in gives you the option. Hey, I want to plug the vehicle in. I want to see what this guy Rob's been talking about when I went to that presentation. Oh, I'm going to run it only on electric mode. This is kind of fun. How long can I do this? How many trips can I make before I have to recharge? Oh, this is kind of fun. I haven't filled up in a while. I have a brother that lives in the city of Chicago, not where I would want to live, too cramped for me, has a plug-in hybrid. He fills his car up twice a year with gas, and he goes about 6,000 to 7,000 miles. The reason being, he plugs his car in religiously and runs around in electric mode in the city. Usually the only time he has to use gas when he has to visit his brother way out west in St. Charles. So kind of something to think about. Plugins allow you that flexibility. Let's say you buy it, you plug it in, you have a bad experience, you don't want to have to worry about it. The beauty of a plug-in, when that high voltage battery recharges by itself, that's fine. You drive the car just like a normal car. When the battery depletes, the gas engine starts back up. If you never want to plug it in ever again, it'll still run on electric only mode, just not as long as it could. So you're not hurting the car in any way. Just gives you a little bit more independence. Electric vehicles, that's where there's really a second fork in the road of you have to kind of dedicate an electric vehicle is going to work for me, and here's why it's going to work for me. Electric vehicles give you the greatest energy independence, if you will, because our electricity is made domestically, it's somewhere here local, it's from an energy source we could probably see in the state somewhere, whether it's one of the nuclear plants or it's electricity from a fossil fuel burning like natural gas plant. It's less susceptible to all these energy disruptions we've seen recently for gasoline. that's kind of nice in my mind. But biggest expense is you're sacrificing some freedom of, well, I go to Florida twice a year. An EV may not be the vehicle to do that in. Even if you had a vehicle that had a range of 300 miles, Florida is more than 1,000 miles away. That range estimate changes drastically in the highway. So you need to be prepared for, it says 300 miles, but when you start going 80 miles an hour, or maybe 85 with traffic, depending on the state and how crazy people are driving, you may only get 250 miles of range because the energy consumption is that much greater. If you're stopping every 250 miles, you also then have to charge for either 20 minutes or an hour every time. All right, well, if you're stopping every 250 miles over 1,000 mile trip, you're stopping at least 4 times for an hour. Well, I already ate lunch at the last stop. Well, now I got to stop again. What am I going to do for an hour? Maybe I'll pay extra for the faster supercharger to charge the vehicle faster. You're going to pay a premium for that. EVs, there's dozens of articles and videos that have been done showing that it's possible to drive electric vehicles cross country. That would, I kind of equate it to when they first discovered America and everyone was heading west, trying to find California. It would be like, look, I told you a wagon and a horse could make it all the way to California. Well, yeah, it can, but it's going to take some time. EVs are kind of in that point right now where, yeah, they can make it cross country, but it's probably not the ideal way to transport yourself. Okay. There's better options right now. That being said, I know some people that have made the switch to EV, and then because they have a relative that's a great distance away and they don't want to fly, they just rent a car once a year. They rent a car for that week. That gives them the ability to just drive, not have to charge. It's an expense they just kind of put up with and equate back to, that fuel savings that hopefully they see from using an EV. But you have to pick one of those three if you're going to make the jump. I see the market heading in this direction. More hybrids as standard and plug-in hybrids as an option. If we're talking about resources, you may have heard that like the chemical material to make the batteries is rather rare earth substances like lithium ion or lithium phosphate, nickel metal hydride. Those are different battery chemistries. There's only so much of that material available to us. And a lot of it comes from areas that aren't super politically stable. So it's hard for, in North America, we can't really source this stuff. We have to import it. If I'm if I'm a vehicle manufacturer, I can import a certain amount of that material and I could either build one EV with that material, or I could build 3 or 4 plugins with the same amount. Or I could decide to build 6 to 8 hybrids with the same amount of material. So I have a decision as a manufacturer. What makes the most sense to me? What do I think the public is actually going to bite, and what are they going to jump ship to? A lot of manufacturers you have seen in the past year greatly reduce the amount of EVs in the market or announce they're stopping production of a particular model. The kind of 2 things there. There's less government support from the feds, but 2, I think the manufacturers kind of did a disservice to the consumers, and they thought everyone wanted an EV and it had to be a luxury EV, which automatically meant it was $80,000 to $100,000. And if you're like me, that's not attainable, that's not reasonable for the price of the vehicle. Um, so I think manufacturers have to come back down to reality and figure out, hey, if the average vehicle price is $50,000 or less, you need to offer an EV that's that price. Otherwise, people are not going to buy $100,000 minivans or $100,000 pickup trucks in droves. But that may just be my opinion, and I could be wrong. But um, then you also have to decide once you pick hybrid plug-in or EV, you can buy new or you can buy used. Recognize there's that warranty piece that I talked about. Um, the warranties are the same whether you buy them new or used, so you should feel comfortable. Sometimes, like Chevrolet, from memory, they're bumper to bumper transfers. So let's say you bought a 1 year old Chevrolet, bumper to bumper for a Chevy is 3 years, 36,000 miles. That means it doesn't matter if the turn signal or the radio goes out, those aren't EV or high voltage components. They're still covered, and they would be technically covered even though you're the second owner. Traditionally, the bumper to bumper warranty is only honored to the first person who buys the vehicle. But we're seeing manufacturers are trying to incentivize. How do I get you to buy an EV? Well, who? I'll make the warranty a little bit sweeter. I'll transfer that over. Again, that's kind of a vote of confidence from their perspective. They know they've crunched some numbers and they understand they're not going to lose a lot of money because they don't see a lot of failures. So they feel confident enough to bring the warranty to that second buyer. Um, you can save on some depreciation if you buy used, but you can't always choose what you want. Okay. It may take some time, which is fine if you've got time to budget and search and shop. But not everybody has that luxury. Sometimes you're in a crunch. You might get in an accident, unfortunately, and insurance companies sometimes only give you 3 days. Here's your rental. Go find a car. Good luck. And that could be really tough if you're trying to find a used vehicle. Um, how to choose a platform? Find something with a proven history. Oh yeah, I've seen a lot of these are available. They seem to have a lot of them. They've made them for a number of years. Not, oh, I found this vehicle. It looks nice. Oh, there's only 2 model years they ever made this. Oh, they don't even make it anymore. Not saying that that's a bad pick, but there's better picks out there that you may want to uh, have a bias towards. Okay, so I use Toyota as an example. Their hybrid system has been around for 25 years. The Prius has had it, and then they added the RAV4 after that, and then the Camry, and then the Highlander. Today, if you buy a Toyota minivan, you're not allowed to buy a vehicle that's not a hybrid. All the minivans come as a hybrid standard, kind of like Henry Ford. If you want a Model T, it comes in one color, black. Okay, get any color you want, but it's black. So try and find something that's popular. If it's less popular, sometimes we see issues where parts availability, all of a sudden, you can't get a part. Manufacturers, as a rule of thumb, are only required to offer parts for a vehicle for 8 years from the date of production. So, I was kind of in the same boat. I was picking my bolt out, and there wasn't a lot out there, especially for the price range that I wanted. I ended up with the cheapest electric vehicle that was available at the time. But I was also trying to think, is this something that GM's going to keep around? And GM kept the Bolt around from 2017, that was the first year, until 2024. So 7, 8 years, that's pretty good. And they're coming back out with it for 2027. So there's a decent amount of confidence there. Ford Lightning is their F-150 pickup that's electric. Again, big manufacturer known for their pickup trucks. That would be a strong bet if you're buying electric. Um, you wouldn't want something where, not to pick on a manufacturer, but if they only offer one model and you don't see commercials for it and it doesn't seem to be advertised all that much, sometimes we call that a compliance car, meaning the manufacturer built it to be compliant with a rule, but they basically show no support or love for it. They're just here. I appeased a rule for the government or regulation, but I'm not going to try to intentionally market the vehicle. Um, when I worked for Chrysler, we famously did that for an electric version of the Fiat 500. In the state of California, for example,